Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Julianne Manning, and I am the product specialist here at Saran. And I want to welcome you to our Payroll Made Easy webinar. This webinar is a part of our 2024 Discover What's Possible series. And Chris, our marketing specialist, he's going to put a link to our website for this series where you can see a list of all of our upcoming webinars, such as Easy Online Giving, which will take place in October, and Prepping for Year End in CDM Plus, which will take place in November. And this is also where you can see any previously recorded webinars as well, including the recording that will happen today. We are taking a break in this series in September so our team can prepare for our annual users conference that is set to take place at the end of September. We just have a few spots remaining, so I highly encourage you to register soon. This is a great interactive conference where you're able to take a deep dive into all that CDM Plus has to offer, as well as interact with other CDM Plus users and hear ways that they're utilizing the program. You can get one-on-one support. And Chris will also put a link to our conference page so you can make sure to check this out as well. Our presenter today is Don Howell, a support technician on our team, who has been with Saran for 3 years, but who has been using CDM Plus for 20 plus years. Don brings with him today his expert knowledge in payroll, as well as valuable firsthand experience. Other members of our team who are joining us are Sherry Sneeden, our support manager, Jennifer Nelson, our support engineer, Chris Widener, our marketing specialist, and Eli Turner, our sales specialist. If you are not already using CDM Plus Payroll, by joining us today, you have the opportunity to test it out for free for 3 months. Reach out to Eli at sales@cdmplus.com or send him a message in the chat to find out more details about how you can get signed up for 3 months free. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and let Don get started and tell us how we can discover how we can make payroll made easy.
Good afternoon, everybody. As Julianne mentioned, I am a support specialist here with CDM Plus and have been using the program for nearly 20 years. I am also the pastor of a church and have been pastoring for 30 years. So we're going to talk about why would you use CDM Plus payroll? What I found is there's cost savings in using CDM Plus that I could use for ministry. I was able to save our church when we switched to CDM payroll in 2010, nearly $3,000 just in the money that we were spending for an accounting firm to do our payroll. It was money that I could use for ministry and doing other things, improvements around the church. Another thing that I love about CDM payroll is that the processes are easy to use and they're time saving. Once you get things set up in payroll, the process of running payroll is pretty simple. Even the forms are not difficult as well. I also like the fact that there are a complete list of employee records at your fingertips. So if you need to go find information about an employee, they are found very easily. It's easy to create and access quarterly and yearly tax forms, online accessibility for employees to access their pay stubs and information, as well as detailed reporting options. So today, I want to specifically talk about some payroll features. Some of them I will cover with you very briefly. One of the things that I really like about the setup features in CDM is that it makes setting up payroll, payer records, and deduction setup records easy. And so we'll just cover that very briefly. We're going to talk about employee record management today. We're going to talk about how to calculate hourly and salary payrolls and calculating time off, such as vacation time, sick time, and personal time. We're going to talk about ACH payments and writing payroll checks and direct posting to the ledger. We're also going to talk about AP invoicing for withholdings, viewing payroll reports, making tax payments and the filing system, the Atrix filing system, as well as online payroll. And so the first thing we want to talk about is how to access payroll. And you can do that a couple of different ways. You can do that through the welcome window, which is if you go up to help and open the welcome to CDM Plus window, you can access payroll here. You can also do it through a toolbar that you can set up in your preferences by clicking on the welcome to payroll toolbar. I'm an old school guy. I've been using CDM for a long time, and I learned how to use it by using the menu. So we're gonna use the menu today in the way that we access it. So go to Program, Payroll, and the first thing we want to look at is we want to look at the payroll setup. I'm going to cover this very briefly. Payroll setup allows you to set up default information for your records. So in this setup window, you can set up default information for the pay setup for an employee, like default W-4 information, state information. You can set up default pay items and set up the setup taxes and deductions set up for that as well as default expense accounts and other things. You can set up default user deductions, which is common things that would be used. And to me, one of the most important things in the payroll setup is setting up the liabilities. This feature of being able to set up your liabilities in this payroll setup window will often save you trouble when you're trying to post payroll when you add a new employee. So great to be able to just set them up here so it's automatically done when you add a new employee. We can also set up your different payroll check styles for your payroll checks in this window. Additional payroll settings such as different descriptions of pay items as well as how your time off is accrued and what you will call your third time off description. And in this case, we've called it personal time. There's also a window to set up ACH. If you want to use ACH, you would probably need to speak with Eli in the sales to get that set up, but you can use ACH and create a file for ACH. The last thing is notifications, staff notifications for accounts payable. All right, and so the next thing in the setup is going to be the payer records. So we go to Program, Payroll, and Payer Records. Payer Records is where you set up the setup for the organization. And in this case, we have two payer records. Some churches have daycares and schools, so they can actually have two payer records in their payroll system. So they can have the one for their church, but they can also have another one as well. And in this window, you're going to set up things like your federal tax ID number, your state tax ID number as well, who the contact is for the organization. All of this information gets transposed and carried over into your 941 and tax forms. The third area in the setup is the deduction setup records. And to get to that by going to payroll and then deduction setup records. Deduction setup records are additional deductions that are going to be taken out of an employee's pay that such as insurance, pension, your matching deductions, those kind of things. And in this window, you can set up things like your pension to show what W-2 field it's going to come out of, how often it comes out of their pay, where that money is going to go, what liability account it's going to be kept in, and if there's an employer matching deduction. Now, most of the time, employees will tell you how much they want taken out of each pay, so there's not a calculation, but some employees will say that they want 10% of their pay going to their pension. So you could withhold specific percentages of their gross and set up flat amounts for that. But with the employer pension match, in this case, you can also set up a matching withholding for that employee, that the church would, or the organization would withhold, to match whatever their deduction is. And then there would be an expense account associated with this one, as well as a W-2 field. And in the calculation, you can tell the program how much you want to withhold of the employee's deduction up to a certain percentage of their gross pay. You can also use this window for HSA, you can do it for savings, you can do it for various taxes, local taxes, as well. You would set those up in the deduction setup records. So one thing that I want to spend a considerable amount of time on is the employee records themselves. So go to payroll and employee records. This window is vital in how payroll is calculated. And so I've set up one for myself, and I'm going to just kind of cover the various tabs that are available on this window when you're setting up an employee. So you're going to set up all their pertinent information, what their position title is when they started under the employee information tab. On this window, there's an option that most people miss, to also link it to an address record in the database. So if, in this case, I've got myself set up as the lead pastor of this organization, and I have linked this to my personal record that I also have in the database, and I have an individual record as well, listed under Don Howe. So this is important because this will allow, if the person has an Engage account, it will allow them to be able to access their payroll records from their Engage account when you link it to their address record, their individual record. The second tab is the Setup tab. The Setup tab, you can set up their specific requests for their W-4, their allowances, any state and local taxes. You can also set in this window to exclude from payroll tax forms, or if they are an auto draw. So if they use ACH or direct deposit payroll, you would select the auto draw toggle there to indicate that they do not receive a payroll check, that theirs is direct deposited. Third tab is the Pay Items tab, and this is where you'll set up the various pay items for each employee. In this case, I've got two pay items. One is a salary item and one housing pay item. The salary is set up as a semi-monthly, so you can change the pay frequency in this depending on how often they get paid. You would set a standard rate. Now, if you have an hourly employee, you would put their rate per hour in these fields, as well as the expense accounts and the FICA and Medicare. There's an additional tab at the bottom. If you notice, it says Pay Setup here. There's an additional tab called Taxes and Deductions. And in my case, because I'm a minister, I'm exempt from FICA and Medicare because I'm viewed as a dual status employee with the IRS. The church doesn't take FICA and Medicare out on me. So I exempt that in the salary pay item, and I have my pension coming out. As you can see, I don't have that exempted. Now, looking at how I can also, on that screen, while I was thinking about it, you can also add on to, if they requested in the W-4, you can add on to their federal, state and local taxes if they want additional taken out, if they designate that on their W-4. On the housing allowance, you also are given, when you set up an allowance, you're given the option of choosing what W-2 line that it's going to come out of. And in this case, it's box 14, and it's with the designation under housing. And those expense account is specific to this particular payroll item. Now with the taxes and deductions on this setup, this is exempt from all taxes and deductions because the IRS doesn't view housing as taxable federally, but it is subject to Social Security and Medicare. All right. So the next item is the deductions tab. All right, so here's the deduction setup record that I have set up for this. Is a pension deduction, $250 every pay, or once a month on the first payroll. You can also do it every pay, or whatever frequency that you want to do this deduction. And then it also shows the vendor. You can choose the vendor that you want this deduction coming out of as well. Next tab is the liabilities tab. And again, I want to emphasize how important it is to make sure that all of this is filled out. You have to have account numbers for all of the federal FICA and Medicare, state and local. If you have those taxes being withheld, you have to have withholding account numbers, liability account numbers for that, as well as vendors for those accounts in order to be able to post payroll. Otherwise, payroll will not post. Next tab is the time off tab. This window here shows you how much time off has been accrued and how much has been used, and it will show you the balance if someone asks. And you can see there's 3 tabs: sick, vacation, and personal time. In this case, it's personal. I believe Minnesota has MNEST, but you can adjust these. Make adjustments in this windows to these specific types of time off. You can also allow it to carry over to the next year, but it will keep track of your time off in this window. The comments window is a window where you can actually make notes regarding that employee, like if they had a pay increase, or any type of adjustment or change that you have had to make to their payroll. You would just notate it in the comments part of this window. The next tab is the accounts tab, and for those who have direct deposit, they would put their routing number, their account number, and if you don't have to put 2 account numbers, but I have, just to show you that you can put multiple account numbers in here, and the program will divide up the percentage or the amount that is designated into each account. So in this case, what I've shown is 90% of my paycheck going to the checking account, and 10% of it going into my savings account. The next tab is the connections tab. Let me cancel that real quick. There we go. All right, the connections tab is a tab that will show what connections this person has to other people that are in the database. So in this case, I have connections to my wife, April, my son-in-law, Nick, and my daughter, Hannah, who are also in the database as part of the church. The last box or tab is the user fields tab. And in this case, I have a couple of things saved in here digitally. One is a background check. So you can use that for, everyone in your church, or, specific children's workers or whoever. You can upload a background check into a user field, as well as their W-4. You can put a digital copy to that. It can be loaded in here and previewed. So you can preview this form, which this is just a blank W-4, but I wanted you to be able to see that you can load these digital copies of a background check and a W-4 into the record, as well as any other any other forms or anything that you would require. Maybe even an employment form could go on this window. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is how to actually calculate regular payroll. So we're going to just kind of show you how easy calculating payroll is. So once you get all the setup done, and that is the most time-consuming part, is just getting the setup done. And once it's done and done correctly, processing payroll is very quick and very easy. So I'm going to calculate a regular payroll for myself today. So you go to payroll, calculate regular payroll. All right, and it's going to ask you for payroll period date. So we're going to put August 1st to August 15th in here. And we're going to put a paid date of the 15th. And we're just going to choose me in this case because I know that one's work fine. So you have several options on the left-hand side here called post-processing options. So once I calculate this payroll, you're telling the program what you want to do next, and the program will automatically open these windows. And in this case, I've told it to also process hourly payroll and open payroll records. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and calculate the payroll in the bottom right corner. Okay, so it's calculated my payroll, and now it's giving me the option, which the second thing was to calculate hourly payroll. And so we're just going to do one of these. We'll just say this person's worked 10 hours and they make $12 an hour. So their gross pay is 120. So we'll go ahead and calculate theirs as well. All right. And now it's going to open the payroll records window, which is what we told it to do. So the payroll records window actually gives you an opportunity to view the payroll and make sure your payroll is correct. And it also allows you to make corrections. There may be situations where you want to, the church has decided to increase wages for this particular payroll. You can make adjustments to things as well on this window. I think it's great for when you have one, like a one-time change, that you just need to make an adjustment to. So when you click change on the summary tab, it gives you the opportunity to change what the federal taxes are that are being withheld in this, federal, state, and local on this particular payroll. You can also set the check number. You can set the asset. You don't have to do those things on this window, but you have the opportunity when you click change. The next thing is the detail tab. The detail tab lets you get specific pay items. So a lot of times when we're making, when we make adjustments to payroll, we will make adjustments under this detail tab, and we may have to correct something, in the way that something was reported on the W-2. This happens quite a lot, at the beginning of the year. A pastor will come back and say, hey, I had, too much, went to my salary, my W-2, my accountants told me it needs to go to housing. So we can make those adjustments right here in this window to correct those kind of issues. And also correct the deductions as well. So you're going to see not just the employee's deduction, pension deduction, but you're also going to see the portion for the employer's match in this window as well. So I always recommend people to view their payroll before they write a check, just so that they can make sure that everything looks the way that they want it to, on this screen, before you actually post anything to the ledger. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about writing a payroll check or creating an ACH file. So when you write a payroll check, you're going to go to the payroll and write payroll checks. All right. And here you have a number of options on this window. You have options on the payroll period, paid dates that you want to write checks for. You can set the asset account, the starting check number. You can put whatever check number you want to be in there. You can tell the format of the check type that you want to use. You can use payroll or PR, the type of check you want to use on this window. You can also tell the program that you want to calculate time off before you actually print a check. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of demonstrate writing a check to myself here, okay? And we're going to go ahead and write this check, and I'm going to print it to the screen just so you can kind of see. Now I have clicked the calculate time off option. So it's going to give me the option to go ahead and make any adjustments to time off while I'm here on this window. So I don't have to, go specifically, to program, payroll and calculate time off. I can do it from this window. And I'm going to set the cutoff date here. And I can say, all right, I accrued, 10 more days of vacation, which would be wonderful. And I used one during this period. Okay. So I can set that for sick time. I can also do it for vacation time. I accrued 20 more today. That would be wonderful. And I used 5 of them. Same with personal time as well. So once you click save, that makes the calculations, updates the other, and it's going to ask me if I want to continue writing checks. I'm going to say yes. And then we're going to just print this check to screen. All right. All right. So this is the payroll check, and it's going to ask me if I want to post the payroll. So if I realize that there's an issue with the check, maybe the check doesn't print right or it doesn't calculate correctly, I've still got an option to actually fix this at this point. So if I go to print the check and it prints 2 checks instead of 1, or it crumples the paper or something, I can always just tell it I don't want to post the payroll right now. And it actually changes the mode. If you notice here, it changed the mode from unpaid to paid, because it believes that I've paid this check now. But I can actually mark this check at this point, and I can tell it to mark this check as unpaid because I've messed up the check. So I'm going to click mark unpaid, and it's going to ask me, do I want to create a voided ledger entry for this check number? And I'm going to say yes, because it messed up that check number. And the program will automatically do that for you. It will automatically put that void, and it advances to the next check number when I rewrite this check. So we're going to do check number 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 now. And we're going to go ahead and process that so that we can rewrite that check. Okay, it's going to ask me about the time off again, and I'm going to say no to that, and we're going to go ahead and click continue writing checks. All right, and we'll print that check to the screen. All right, and once it's processed that check, it's going to ask me if I want to post payroll. This check came out good, so I'm going to say yes. All right, and then it's going to give me a list of payrolls that are available to post to my ledger. So I can, on this screen, I can view this payroll. I can print a report preview here. I can look at a posting report prior to actually posting it, and it'll just show you what this posting report is going to look like. It's a breakdown of all the different items that are part of this payroll. Also on this window, if there is an issue with any of the account numbers or vendors for me, it would have put in red writing. It would have said there was a problem with those particular account numbers on this person's payroll, and so it would give me the option of actually going to that payroll, fixing the problems so that I could go ahead and post this to my ledger. So we're going to go ahead and post this to the ledger, and then it's going to print a posting report. So what is happening right now, the program is actually creating a ledger entry as well as an invoice, because in the setup, I have told it to create an invoice for the withholdings as well. So this is the final posting report, and it shows you the check number. It also shows you the ledger reference and the transaction date. So the next thing I want to cover with you is I want to show you some of the reports that are common, that we use quite often. You have a number of reports that you can use in CDM Plus, listings and exports, an employee listing report. Probably one of the most common ones that I use personally is the taxable income summary, but a lot of folks use the payroll period summary. The taxable income summary report is a report that I use to verify what the withholdings were for a particular period of time. So what I can do is I can actually look at the payroll for everybody in a certain period and time frame, and I can say, what's our tax liability in this particular time frame? In this case, I've got the first quarter. So our federal tax liability would have been $6,931.48 in this quarter. The reason I like this report is because when you go to make a tax payment, and I often make tax payments through EFTPS, it tells me, EFTPS asks you how much of it was federal tax, how much was FICA, and how much was Medicare. So what I like about this report is it gives me that breakdown. It tells me how much was withheld in the federal taxes right here. It also tells me the total FICA and the total Medicare that was withheld in this period. So it gives me the numbers that I need to make a payment. I also use this report to verify that the invoices that I have in my database match for this period, this same amount. And so before I ever make a payment, I always confirm that this number and the dollar amount in the invoices that I have in the accounts payable system all match one another. And the accounts payable are found under the mark invoices to pay. So I would select the ones that I have for that particular period, and confirm that the dollar amount matches, which, before I make a payment, because I don't want to post anything in my ledger that isn't exactly the same as the payment that I actually make to the IRS. So I always double check that. That's just my own personal little method that I use to make sure that what I am paying the IRS, what I'm putting in my ledger, and what is in my reports all match one another. Okay, so I just kind of use that as a verification. The reports is a form of verifying what I owe the IRS before I actually make a payment. Also on this, you can see there's detail reports, employee detail reports, deduction detail, state detail. You can also do worksheets where people, fill out timesheets, percentage reports, time off remaining, time off log. One of the things that I would like to just chat with you a little bit about is the payroll tax forms. One of the things that I really love about CDM is how easy payroll tax forms are. Filling out a 941 is very straightforward. You select the 941, you put in the year, you put in the quarter. You can designate whether this is your federal form or whether it's your state form. So you can choose which form you're submitting. We use a company called Atrix. They actually update all the tax forms, and our program integrates with Atrix. Atrix will also make tax payments for you and deduct it from your bank account if you choose. They will electronically file the forms if you want. But in this case, we're just going to kind of show you the 941 when it comes up. You just click Show Form. And it'll pull up it'll pull up your 941 for you to verify the amounts and submit it as well. So you have the option to e-file it or print it. I'm on a Mac, so it looks a little bit different on a Windows machine. You'll have the buttons will look a little bit different, but you still have the same options, whether you want to print the form or whether you want to e-file the form. You can also do your federal tax deposits this way as well, the same exact way. Once you have filed a form, you have a history option on this where you can go back and look at previous forms that you filed. I always recommend to everyone to always keep a paper copy of every single document that you send to the IRS because they like to ask for copies of forms later down the road. If you have one on file, it's just easier to get a hold of it. So the last thing I want to show you is how to view your information online if you have an Engage account. So if a person is an employee and they have an Engage account in your database, this would be the window. This is what their Engage account looks like. They have an opportunity to give and all those things, but when you link it in that employee record, like I showed you earlier, when you click link to record, it will give them this additional option called payroll, and they can view their payroll records. And so it'll pull up all their paychecks, and you can see the paycheck that we ran today, August 15th, check number 12346 is in this list. And on this page, they can print out their own payroll information, okay? So they can view it, they can view their pay items, they can view their withholdings, they can view their deductions, and they can also print a pay stub, okay? So this will print it in PDF format, and they can view and print a pay stub for themselves if they want to. Another option that they will have is to view their year-to-date payroll. They can click on this year-to-date payroll option, and they can look at specific years, not just 2024, but they can look at specific years. They can look at all their pay items together, or they can look at their withholdings, what has come out so far in their withholdings for year-to-date, as well as their deductions. All right, so this is all I have for you today. I want to open it up at this time to see if there's anybody that has any questions.
We did have one in the chat that said, asked, does CDM Plus calculate the time off for you, or do you have to calculate it yourself?
CDM can calculate the time off for you. In the setup, you can actually tell the program how much is accumulated per period. So if an employee accumulates, say, a quarter hour for every 40 hours that they work, you can set those specific calculations in the database. And when you calculate the payroll, it can automatically calculate that for you. Yes.
Tina, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was want to know about the permissions and the confidentiality for these the payroll. How does that work? Is that set up in a different place? Where would you find that, and who does it?
An administrator can set the permissions for payroll of what could be done or seen. So every person who has a login in the database, you can set individual permissions for whatever part of the program that you want them to be able to view. If you do not give them permission to view or print or modify payroll, they will see the payroll button, but it will be grayed out and they will not be able to access anything to do with payroll.
Thank you. We have Deb asking, can you please explain how to calculate time off?
Sure. All right, let's do some time off calculations. I had mentioned this earlier, that you can set the specific calculations in the payroll system, so it can actually in the employee record rather, you can set what is accrued every so many days or hours. So we had talked about that a minute ago, that you can set, how much is accrued, but you can also manually enter how much is put in there or how much is accrued or used as well. So if you choose to, you can manually do your time off by going to the calculate time off button. You can go in here and manually do it, but there's also a calculate accrued option down in the bottom left corner. So if you have an accrued calculation, so the program will look at how many hours a person's worked or how many days they worked, and it will do the calculation for, based on whatever you've put into their employee record, and it will do those for you. Now, you always have to tell the program how much was actually used, because the program doesn't know that. Only you know that if they use time off. But you would just put your cursor in the field if they've used, a certain amount of hours. So in this case, it says I've got a balance of 27. If I say I've used 7 vacation hours and save that, it'll update my record to show that that's what I have used. So let's go back to my employee record real quick. All right. So if I look at my vacation time, see how it changes my balance to 20, and it shows that I used 7 right here.
Someone's asking, Engage, is it set up in CDM or in the app?
Engage is set up in CDM. So the first part that you have to do is you have to actually have an Engage account. So in this case, I have an individual record set up in the database with my name on it. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull them all up here. It should already be on my name. So I already have an Engage account set up here. So the first thing you do is you create the online credentials. You can do that. You can do it in CDM Plus in the individual record. An individual can create their own Engage account as well. If they go to your Engage page, they can create their own Engage account. But the main thing is that you need to see that they have online credentials in this window in the individual record. And then once you know that they have that, you can go to the employee record and you can link that employee record to that individual record that shows they are, they do have Engage. So you would click this link to address toggle here, and you would also select which individual record that this employee record is connected to. So this is the individual, myself, which has the Engage account. And once those two things are done, then a person can access their payroll through Engage.
I think that about do it, Don.
All right, we thank you for joining us today. We hope everyone has a blessed day.